Pleasant good evening and welcome to another edition of Swerve with Me. This is a show where we have adult conversations for mature audiences only. So, welcome to Swerve with Me. I'm Miranda Innes, and it's always a pleasure to have each and every one of you coming in tonight. As you come in, come on, like and share because happy independence. Bahamas, to all of my brothers and sisters scattered across the diaspora. I want to say happy 48th independence to every Bahamian citizen, no matter which space you may occupy at this particular time on planet Earth. What a wonderful privilege it is to be counted among those who call ourselves Bahamians, all 400 and something plus thousand of us. We are people of great strength. We are a people of great wealth. We are a people of family. We are a united people. And even in the midst of so many things that may not be right, we celebrate our uniqueness as a people. We celebrate our culture. We celebrate our is what we are. All that we are across the world. We are unique. And whenever we show up in spaces, people know that we are Bahamian and we are proud. So come on in and share because tonight we are going to have a very in-depth conversation with someone that has been an integral part of my life and professional career, all of my professional career, and that is Dr. Deborah Bartlett. Some of you would know her from her years at the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. Others of you would know her as a media mogul and owner of GEMS Media Network. I have the wonderful privilege of working with her throughout the years and also serving as an executive of the CEO Network, of which she is the president. In addition to that, she's the founder of the Economic Emancipation Movement. We'll be talking a lot about that tonight. When I decided to do the show, and I thought about in wake of the recent assassination of the Haitian president, I thought about the price of freedom. What does it really cost? And for him, it costed him his life. His wife is battling for her life. And we think about all the many countries around the world where their citizenry they're in some type of civil war and they're fighting for freedoms. And when we think about the Bahamas, we are grateful that every election cycle, there's no violence, no loss of life. And that speaks to, I want to say, the resilience and indomitable spirit of the Bahamian people. While they may be frustrated, while they may be angry, while they may be dissatisfied, they don't resort to violence. So I wanted to have a conversation tonight with Dr. Bartlett. I'm waiting for her to come in about the price of freedom. What does it really cost? And to talk about economic emancipation, because when we think about independence, we were freed or became independent from colonial rule, technically under the British rule in, oh, my mind just went blank, July 10th, 1973. That's when the Bahamas became an independent nation. So we're only 48 years old. And when we think about all that we've accomplished in the 48 years, how we've made ourselves known on the international scene, on the global scene, we're known in quarters, we're known for sports, we're known for business, we're known for hospitality globally. We have been able, as a small group of people that call themselves Bahamian, to really make our presence known and to leave our footprints throughout the world. And we are proud of the work that we're doing, but we're also sensitive to the fact that there's so much more that we can be doing. There's so much more that needs to be done. And it doesn't matter what side of the political train you may be on. The fact that you are Bahamian, you take responsibility for your part, what you own, and what you are doing to help to grow and develop your country, your community, your island, or wherever you may be around the world, because we are scattered in Europe and the Americas and South America and throughout the Caribbean and the utmost parts of the world. As they say, we're scattered all around the world. So I want to say good evening to Monique, good evening, Newton, good evening, Michaela, good evening, Joba, good evening, Marcia. Good evening, Sandra Lee, Carnes, Delarisa, all of you else out there who's watching. I wanted to have this conversation with someone like a Dr. Deborah Bartlett, who is world renowned, who is well versed on happenings around the world, particularly when it comes to economies. And if those of you would have seen the promo that I had posted over the weekend about her, we're talking about where we stand as a people, as a Bahamian people, and the work that needs to be done to even elevate our status on the world scene, and more importantly, to make the wealth in the Bahamas common. We are called the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and we know that there are so many people that are now living below the poverty line for so many varied reasons. And we want to bring as many people above that line as possible that want to, because I got to be frank with you, there are some people that just simply do not want to put in the work that it takes to lift themselves up. And there are a group of people who simply just sit back and wait for handouts. So I want to say good evening to my Auntie Liz. Good evening, Shirley. Good to have you here as well. So there are a group of people that we got to call it what it is, that are, they simply wait for you to give them handouts. And they're not intentional about putting in the work that it takes to build, to grow, to stretch, and all those things that are necessary to become a progressive and productive citizen in the community where they live. Good night, Bibi. Nice to have you. Nice to have you. So good to have you here. And so tonight I wanted to have this conversation about the price of freedom, economic emancipation, and all points in between. I might add that you need to get yourself a notepad, because I can assure you that she will be dropping some nuggets. I can assure you she will be dropping some nuggets that you would want to take particular note of. And so it gives me the greatest, I'm humbled, and I'm also super excited that among all the varied things that she could be doing at this particular time, she's consented to be a guest on Swerve with me. She's decided to swerve with me tonight, y'all. And that's a big deal, whether you know it or not. It is a big deal. So help me welcome to this platform tonight my friend, my mentor, my colleague, Dr. Deborah Bartlett. Good evening.
I am so honored to be here, and hello to you all. I want to tell you, Miranda Innes, I honor you. I admire you. I am so privileged to have you in my life. Thank you. You're a good coach too, and a trusted friend. And I'm excited about what's ahead of us tonight.
Thank you so much. So, listen, let's get right down. When I thought about this show, as I was telling those that are watching, in wake of the assassination of the Haitian president and all that's going on throughout the diaspora around the world, I thought about the price of freedom. And for him, it was his life, with the things that he was trying to do in his country. And as we look around the Bahamas and around the world in general, there are so many nations that are fighting for that, for emancipation, and not in the technical sense of being liberated from a dominant country, but emancipation economically, emancipation socially, emancipation emotionally, spiritually for people, so that they can truly live the life that we believe that God intended us to live. And your message is always that life that God intended us to live began in the garden. Let's talk about that.
Well, first of all, let me extend my sympathies to the people of Haiti, but also just honor and thank them. They serve as the foundation of democracy for the entire hemisphere. They were brave enough to take on the colonialists and won. They're still trying to find their way. Vision always helps us find a way. And when you speak to economic emancipation, there must be a paradigm shift. We are now in a season where we have allowed error to convince us that what is supposed to be natural to us has become unnatural. So we believe that 1% of the world's population is entitled to control the wealth. That is totally opposed to what the purpose of man is.
Mm-hmm.
We were born in Botswana. The Garden of Eden is believed to have been in Botswana. The oldest skeletal remains
Mm-hmm.
has been discovered in that country called Botswana. That is diamond rich. And so when we were introduced to life, when we came into being in the earth realm, we were born economically liberated. Our purpose of man, of mankind, male and female, is to dominate industry. It did not say 1 to 3% dominate industry.
Mm-hmm.
The first assignment given to Adam was to manage the natural resources. The diamonds, the fish of the sea, well, the very first was the fish of the sea. Because when you control your agriculture and fisheries industry, you control nations. The Maslow's law worked from the beginning, that we must satisfy food and shelter is the basic need of man. And so what we need right now is to adjust our thinking to understand that the success manual for life is the Word of God that has as the guiding post for how we protect, preserve, and grow our dreams that lead to money should be a result, not the motivation, that lead to economic security and liberation must now become our priority to restore our position as the landowners of earth. This earth has been subletted to us. And if we only got 3% in the whole world, 1% really, oh no, man.
So let's talk about how do we shift the culture back to that mindset that we were created to dominate industry. We were created to be in charge of our natural resources. How do we begin to shift the culture, the mindset, so that people recognize it is your right, it is your privilege to be an owner?
Wealth is in knowledge. And the success manual for life, the Bible says, learn from the word. Be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Effective communication is when we are able to remove the noise, the distractions. And what I believe a lot of times for us are the distractions is that we make it color-based, gender-based, nationality-based. But when we want to shift the mindset, we must agree on the purpose of mankind. If we can agree on that, and if we agree that the first law communicated from the creator of life is to dominate, to master, to own, to be landlords of industry, then let's agree on that. Then what happens is that we ought to govern ourselves according to the vision, the purpose. Purpose gives birth to vision. So our purpose is to be the landlords of earth. The vision that God has for you and I is that we are to master our skills that produces an environment of beauty, peace, and prosperity. Not everybody is a spearhead leader. When Abraham and Lot accumulated so much wealth, The king, they had more wealth than the king. They had to ask him to please leave because we don't have any more space for you. But I want us, what we don't normally talk about, the employees, they had hundreds of soldiers, thousands of employees. And when they moved, that means that they had to move and be able to afford to take care of their room and board, to move their families. Notice that you don't hear about labor disputes. Notice that these employees were also economically empowered. And so if we understand that we're not saying that everybody should be CEO. Aaron and Miriam were deputies. They never ascended to spearhead leadership. No, that was not their calling. Because what we have done in our communities is that we have promoted people out of their purpose. Mm-hmm. So then we become a counterfeit. We are not operating from the passion. We are then putting more faith on somebody's opinion in you than what God's assignment for your life is. Mm-hmm. So to get that change, wealth is in knowledge. Mm-hmm. I got a call today. I had the good privilege and honor to speak at the Embassy International today, and the president of the civil society was there, Dr. Anthony Hamilton, and he called me and he gets it. He said, this teaching belongs in the schools. Mm-hmm. Because when you think about it, we just think about religious acts without recognition or understanding or knowledge that the Bible is really a business manual. Mm-hmm. And history, whether you believe in it or not, continues to confirm that that is the blueprint for life. Anybody who submits to the laws for productivity and prosperity submits to those laws, and they always yield the same result: holistic success. So let's talk now too, because if this has to start from children, and unfortunately we don't have the luxury right now to be able to wave a magic wand or something and get the curriculum in a local school as quickly as we would want to. What would you say to parents? Where do parents start in teaching their children what their rights are as citizens of the world? What do you say to parents? Where do they begin with their children? That's a very good question. Parent means the dignity and character between an adult and a child. Mm-hmm. And what the parent, that adult, see, it didn't say the biological mother or father, because Lot's father, Abraham, was the surrogate father for Lot. Mm-hmm. So the adult in your life that's providing the influence has a responsibility to declare greatness over your life. Mm-hmm. We were born to be great. There's a dream in all of us that is assigned to make a contribution to change the world. And I sat in Washington, no, it was New York. I was in New York with my Jewish friend, Susan Zimmerman. And she was a second or third generation, a business person in the bread industry. They had the largest bread company in the world. They sold it to Wonder Bread because she and her brother wanted to do something else. But I make the point that anytime I meet success, anytime I meet someone who's thinking billionaire and trillionaire status, it's in the mindset and it's generational. And so even though she got out of her parents' business, she said, when I first met her, that she never negotiates a deal below $100 million. If she is going to negotiate $1 million, she may as well do $100 million. Before 2, 3 years later, she said, I'm not going to negotiate anything less than $1 billion. And we were in Washington having breakfast one day, and her 8-year-old son was with us. And she said, this is how the Jews, who are said to be the most likely race of people to have billionaire status, statistically, they are culturally the most wealthy people in the world. When they show up, they master their industry. They live their purpose. And I understand what they do, because if you think about it again in the Success Manual for Life, 12 years old, they are considered adults.
Yes.
Now watch this. Here's my point. And so we were having breakfast, and she said to her son, I'm preparing for this proposal for over $1 billion. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Well, first of all, for him to ask that question, I was like, okay.
To a
Let
12-year-old,
me,
right?
I want you to contribute to my proposal. When that 8-year-old answered his mother, I was like, what? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I could have answered it. So his mother said, very good. One day, you could be the prime minister of the Bahamas. And so he said, no, mommy, I don't want to be the prime minister of the Bahamas. He said, why? She said, he said, the Bahamas is too small. One day I'll be the president of the world. See?
Yeah.
So they teach them to think big. I give credit to my mother and father and my grandparents. And they tell us all the time, as children, you were born to serve the world in humility. You have to understand, never choose your friends by class or color. Choose them by vision and character. And we saw that in their lives. So these are the things that are barriers today. They didn't say politics at the time, but we restrict our ability to excel by making personal decisions and submitting to other divisive barriers like politics. We can only see through a party color. We are undermining patriotism because we are not thinking like that Jewish guy that one day I can be the president of the world. One day, I don't need to think small enough to know that I can be the prime minister, but notwithstanding that this is a sovereign nation. But see, they didn't look at the sovereign nation as a barrier. They figured that if they find a way, and if they want to rule the Bahamas, see, laziness ends in slave labor. And so there's always someone looking to get.
Repeat that. Laziness ends.
Laziness ends in slave labor. Someone is always strategizing for the territory that God blessed us with. So if we don't work our land, we become a slave in it. If we don't take care and know and understand that the natural resources in our country belong to the people of the Bahamas that should participate in the ownership, in the profit of our nation, we will become like an Esau, an Edom, where we sell our birthright for porridge. And that's what sends you into slavery.
So the conversation has to start in the home with parents speaking over their children, into their children's lives, and more importantly, demonstrating what ownership looks like, and they themselves being diligent and not being lazy. That is a whole mind shift within itself happening right before the child's eye. And if he's surrounded consequently by other persons and being a part of different communities that are speaking the same language, if we're communicating the same thing, if everywhere that child goes, he is declared great. If in the classroom when he walks in the morning and that teacher says, you are a great man, You are a great woman. These things begin to not only is not just a recital, but they really begin to penetrate the minds of these children where they're walking around with their chests high, with their heads held up high, because they understand that in them lies greatness and they can, in fact, be great. And so, as we talk about the price of freedom and what that looks like, because we have people watching literally from around the African diaspora. So there's someone here I noticed from Guyana originally. She's in New York, and there are people from different places. What do you say to us as a people, no matter where we are? What should we be doing? What should we be starting? Because I want to also get into the whole part. We're talking about the price of freedom, but I want to get into the whole economic emancipation aspect of it a little later on. But I want you to speak to those persons in particular who are still struggling because of geography, struggling because of mindset, struggling because they don't see this freedom, this emancipation that you're talking about. What do you say to that person who does not have the affirmation that you and your siblings had growing up? So what do you say to that person right now?
Your company gives you a glimpse of your future. If it's not in the home, find the company. Mm-hmm. Connect with people who have vision. If your friends are only telling you about who they slept with, who they want to go with, if their conversation takes you on the road to nowhere, that is not your company. Your company gives you a glimpse of your future. What does that mean? I keep repeating. If you look at your company and they have no desire to go anywhere, they're not working to achieve anything, you're in the wrong company. Because you are not going to go beyond your company. And so when you want to shift, you have to identify relationships. Relationships means connections. You are one connection, 2, 3, 4 connections away based on your company to access the door of the opportunity that's assigned to your purpose. And so when you want to get the attraction of a key, the attention of a king is someone who has dominion over territory. The more territory a king has of industry, for example, if his products are global, regional, national, just community, that's basically the size of his influence. Mm-hmm. And all of those kings are there with some principles. And as they grow in understanding the principles and submitting to it, then their territory increases. If you want to get into the presence of the king, you have to have some qualities. There's no freedom without the freedom of values. And one of those values, believe it or not, is work ethic. Mm-hmm. Diligent hands will rule, laziness ends in slave labor. So when you are diligent, steady as you go, going the extra mile, success is in the extra. Don't worry about that. When you're not being paid what you ought to be paid, the sweat equity that you are getting for the time that you are investing, that will produce excellence. It will take you before king. Mm-hmm. And then what the king determines is how much they can trust you, how much they can trust you, who to trust, how much to trust, who to never trust. The king only wants skill, loyalty, discipline, commitment in their presence. They're the values. Mm-hmm. Because you have the bartender, Nehemiah, who would test the wine for the king. Mm-hmm. We despise being bartenders. We don't think that the bartender is honorable. There's honor in honest labor. So Nehemiah was so good. at his work and knowing and being a connoisseur. And I'm not saying this for license to be drunk, because drunkenness is a sin.
Mm-hmm.
He was a connoisseur, was able to taste if something was off, if somebody was trying to poison
Mm-hmm.
the king. He'd have to take the fall. He better know his way or he died because
Right.
he didn't know. See, skill has to show up. But guess what? No matter what position you are in the king's court, whether you're a bartender, whether you are a sweeper, the Lord always puts you in proximity of a king of industry, of a king of Africa, of a king of Europe. When he puts you in that environment, he is preparing you to ascend to your throne of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get to the fulfillment of your purpose if you have not been exposed and you have not served with excellence a king. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
David, one of the greatest kings of all time, and these kings are not only biblical figures, these are historical facts and truths. He was king. He came through the ranks. He killed the Philistine Goliath. That didn't qualify him, even though there was a prophetic word over his life that one day he would be king. He went back into the king's court. Saul, even though he was the successor, Saul didn't kill Goliath. And guess what he went? He didn't go there as the chief of staff or the permanent secretary. He went there as a musician, a harpist.
Mm-hmm.
But look how close he had to be to the king, because the king had lost focus of some boundaries that he should have had in his life and was taunted by demonic activity. And David's skill with the harp would get them demons to leave him alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But guess what? What we don't think about is that he was there to learn the culture of the king's court. There's a language in every profession. Miranda and I are in broadcasting in the analog days. We used to say roll VTR SOT. Now,
Yes.
somebody in broadcasting, do you know that? It's a language. So you have to get into that industry, into the spearhead leadership and work ethic. Integrity takes you there. Skill takes you there. Integrity is when what you say and what you do are one.
I think what happens in many cases is people misconstrue servitude or confuse it with servanthood. And they confuse it and they don't want to take they don't want to do what we used to call, when again in our genre, there are no small stories. They didn't want a small story, quote unquote. They didn't understand that going on the story, you're building, you're learning, you're mastering some things that you can't just jump back in the day when you were in charge and your predecessors. We were not allowed to we started reading the community announcements. That's what I remember. My first time reading on radio, I started with the community announcements, and then I graduated. I think it was to the World News Report or something, because I think the idea was to make sure that you knew how to pronounce properly all of these foreign leadership names, et cetera, et cetera. And so we didn't hit the anchor desk until we were doing these what were the starting point at the time to be able to read community announcement, where there was a whole different genre of names and pronunciations, and when you were reading all of these different things. And I think people miss the fact that you have to start somewhere, and it is so important that climbing the steps rather than taking that escalator to the top. And I know you were very, very adamant in that space as you led teams and everything, of making sure that people were working, they were learning the lessons. And I think that's one of the things that most of us, I came up in the 80s in broadcasting, and so there were two women that we were looking to for leadership at the time, which was Oprah, who was doing her thing. She was Good Morning Chicago, and this is pre Oprah Winfrey, pre-Harpo. She was out there doing her thing. And then there was our own Dr. Deborah Bartlett, who was Tabby Bartlett at the time. And so we watched the work ethic. We watched that in action. We watched you grow. We watched you build. But more importantly for me, I watched consistency. And that's what I was looking at, the consistency and the humility as you were exposed to international and global leaders all around the world. And I think people miss the whole essence of when you are serving, when you are at that stage where you are not the king, you are serving. It's servanthood, it's not servitude. So you're not less than, but you're learning. You need to be in the king's court if you want to ascend to the throne. Basically, you need to be in the court.
Yeah.
You need to learn the culture. Yeah.
Listen, I could listen to you teach on that, and you should. It's very important. Servitude, the difference between servitude and service is that service and to serve is to help. Servitude, you're not allowed to think. Initiative is discouraged. And so the slaves in Egypt, they were subjected to servitude. When they took initiative as slaves, Pharaoh would take their tools away from them. And don't ask me, don't tell me how to do this. You just do what I say. And for doing it, I'm going to take away some of your tools. You were punished for taking initiative. But that is to dumb down your self-esteem so that you can live below your potential. So you can lose sight that you are here for a purpose. So that eventually you don't even know what God thinks about you. He says in Psalm 82, don't you know that you are gods, but you act like mere men? And so to serve means to help someone get to where they're going. And when you understand that definition, listen to me, you cannot ascend to your throne of purpose without helping someone else, without serving someone else. Look at Jesus. He is the creator of the earth. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was communication. And the Word was made flesh. And he came down and served his mother that he created. Hello? He served his stepfather. Hold on. He went into the temples with the rabbis, teaching him the Word, and he is the Word. So there are times when you submit to people who you know you have more experience than. But they may have a core competency and a purpose for that season for what you need. I attend a church as I do, and the spiritual leader has more, because here's something what I will say to those of us who want to fulfill our purpose. It's not that because we want to be great. We understand that we are purposed here to leave an eternal contribution for humanity. And that makes us great. But we are not motivated to be great because we don't want pride to step in. It's not about us. It's about our purpose. Our purpose is to dominate. And when we understand that, then, it's okay. Because then you understand that when I have to submit to someone in an area that is more developed than I am, and here's a law that people don't understand. It's very easy for me. And this is what I'm asking you, please, to hear me hard. We are different locations and places in our growth and development. Let me say this first. And sometimes we are in environments that we should be there for a season, but you're going to know whether you should be there for a season, for a little short time, or for a long time, based on what? Based on where authority has a global vision.
Yes, absolutely.
If your authority does not have a global vision, you can never go beyond your leader. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a global vision and you submit it to somebody who you want to take care, and that's all, in your business, in your church, you are limiting your growth. There are times that we have to be in that environment because there are some skills that we need. And when we are in that environment, we serve to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm.
But we understand the environment, because if not, what happens is that this is how servitude starts to creep in. Because generally, when we limit ourselves below what God calls us to do, we become insecure.
Yes.
Wherever there's insecurity, there's familiarity. And they don't think you should be who you think you are. They have more of not fulfilling your purpose, but who you think you are, who
Mm-hmm.
you think you is, as Bahamians would say. And it develops over time. You said earlier that, and I honor and salute any African and all Africans, because Africa is the foundation of civilization. There was one landmass in the beginning. There were tectonic shifts that separate us. But the beginning started in Africa, so Africa is the mother of civilization. We have allowed ourselves to be convinced that Africa is less, and then we put mindsets and positions to prove that we are less, who are comfortable with corruption, and then we don't listen. When Rwanda was going through genocide,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? I think it's in the 1994 something. After they came through, they became some of the most peaceful people in the world. In Rwanda and Botswana, there's almost zero corruption. But they still, when you Google them and Google, they tell you that 90% of the people make $2 a day. And that is not true anymore. You can't quickly Google and see that they now got their own gold refinery. No, that's not the headline.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is we continue to believe that a color is less able to. It's self-hatred. And then we blame it on white. It is not the white people's fault.
Mm-mm.
No, no. White people didn't create us. If they are submitting to the law, because we are supposed to have territory, if we don't understand that the diamonds in Botswana and Rwanda, there are diamonds in the Bahamas, there's a Aragonite, and we only feel that the foreigners is best to come in here and take it from us and give us dollar. No, that's not their fault. You know, you don't get what you deserve in life. You get what you negotiate.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So we already know. You just said so much, so rich. Before we could get to racism, I often say I wrote an article on this sometime last year. We have to deal with colorism. And so before we even talk about the black and white issue, we have to deal with colorism, where people who are light skin and dark skin, and the issues that we have among ourselves as a people. It starts there, and it starts with the whole black crab syndrome that we are very familiar with. It begins among us, how we see ourselves, how we think that some people are not deserving because of who their family may be, or how they may look. And so this is a whole shift that needs to take place among us as people of color before we even begin to point fingers at somebody from another race. So I don't even want to delve deep into that part of the conversation. But let me read a couple of comments, because there have just been so many going fast. But I see Joba saying that's powerful. I don't know what she's referring to, but John Darville says, I just love this brilliant Bahamian. Debbie Bartlett. Kendra Robinson Spencer says, I love this. Oh, we have a colleague on, Faisal Forbes, former member of parliament, I might add, for South Andros and Mangrove Key. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you. So good to have you here. Pauline McElpin says, great show. I see a lot of yes lords, like he was really preaching. Somebody said, "Speak it, Miss Bartlett." Yeah, said good evening. Yeah, so they're really engaging in the conversation. So we talked about our birthright as a people, and being created to dominate industry. I might add and put emphasis on that, and not dominate people. Because we have a tendency, as we rise and emerge, and we climb the ladder of success. Some of us have a tendency to want to dominate people. But the whole call was, or the original intent was, to dominate industry, to own industry, our natural resources, etc. Let's shift the conversation now to this idea of economic emancipation, because as a people in the United States on July 4th, and in the Bahamas July 10th, we just celebrated our independence from the British rule, colonialism, technically. And what came with that was a lot of things, but not economic emancipation at all. It just did not come. There are many people, as I can recall, that was the beginning of a lot of Bahamians beginning to matriculate to colleges and universities, and the government, which was a predominantly majority of Black persons now, were so many people were getting scholarships to go to universities throughout the UK and the United States, and we were coming into our own as a people. I was probably in first grade or second grade at the time. But in 1973, us coming into our own as a people, and what that meant, what it felt like to be an independent nation. But when we look around 48 years later, we recognize that while we have achieved so much, while our dollar is doing well, while we've been able to emerge from financial crises, while we've been able to emerge from natural disasters, from the hurricanes, and we're managing with the whole pandemic that we're currently living through, we are still yet not emancipated economically. And that's a problem. And this is where I want to shift this conversation to begin to introduce them to the economic emancipation movement. You are the founder. I don't want to preempt some things that are happening, but let's begin to delve into this whole concept of economic emancipation and what that means to you.
Thank you very much. Could I have permission to just say hello to my dear friend, colleague, Honorable Paiswell Forbes, and all of you who are watching. We love and appreciate you, and I'm happy that you're a part of this conversation. You talked about the Bahamas and the foundation of independence. And if we were to consider for a moment, when we pursued independence, let me go back a little further. When we pursued majority rule, it was not about a color or a race. I mean, the UBP was in power, but William Cartwright and N.H.M. Taylor were white Bahamians. Mm-hmm. We were talking about a human struggle, a fight for the disenfranchised. In 1973, the framers of our Constitution, it was not about politics. Calvin and Bristol, Orville Turnquest, Adiana, Arthur Folks, Loftus Roper, George Smith. Look, those names were the framers. Later on in life, they went to pre-PLP, and other parties, PLP, FNM. That division came later. And that's healthy for democracy. But we shouldn't lose sight of the foundation. The foundation was not made from political bias, but it was a political break from colonialism, and a people, Black and white, brown and Conky Joe, whatever you want to call us, made a decision that we wanted to manage our destiny. You cannot have sovereignty, and there's a question I know about the true sovereignty Thomas does not discuss it about. You cannot have sovereignty without ownership. And because sovereignty means ownership. So it's a joke when we have policies that exclude us from having owners. When we are qualified, not talking about the entitlement. I'm not talking about political favors to those who are not qualified. What's undermining the strength that we have is that the qualified are being undermined. Yes. That's very dangerous because we are not thinking like Suzanne Zimmerman and her 8-year-old son and believing in her son that he is responsible for influencing the world. And so what we are doing is teaching people to be comfortable with complacency and compromise, and discrediting those of us who work for patriotism. It's a departure from the Declaration of the Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution said that we would be given to industry. Reflects what the purpose of mankind is. The promise was made by the father of our nation. And when we say father, don't mean why we can't say he's the father of the nation? He is. You have fathers, but you have the spearhead father. Yes. So we're supposed to honor him. We can't change it because of who we like and who we don't like. No, because growth, economic emancipation comes when we honor our foundations in our homes, our mother and father. Honor your mother and your father so your days may be long. We cannot grow if we don't like black. Let's don't talk about the whites. So we bought, true story. Pikeswell, I don't know if you remember this. In the CEO network, we bought Joe Dudley, second generation. Listen, the first 2 African-American millionaires was Madam C.J. Walker, female, and F.B. Fuller. Mr. Dudley is the second generation of multimillionaire with Dudley's products, and he carries on the legacy of F.B. Fuller, the first African-American male millionaire. And we understood that as in our nation, we have the tourism industry as our cash flow industry. But the challenge, as we can see, and we must also give on this happy Independence Day, and I just want to pause and digress just for a minute, but I'm coming right back to it. Our leaders, our successive leaders, have been able to hold our position as the strongest democracy and oldest democracy in the Western Hemisphere over 200 years. That we are the third strongest economy after the United States and Canada. Let's don't take that for granted. That has and speaks to the strength of our leaders. I don't want to take one. Listen, we have had 17 hurricanes in the last 20 years, and our Bahamian dollar still remains strong. We have the pandemic, and yes, they're saying some things that we don't like and we don't agree with, but just ask Italy, just ask Britain, just ask the United States. Our leaders in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean did better than them, okay? If we were doing like how they were doing in Italy, listen, we wouldn't have any tourists right now. So please, so we have great leaders that we undervalue, but we cannot ignore where we are going wrong so that we do not find ourselves in a position of no return. This is a good time. 48. 40 is generation 4. Open door. We have a window to open and walk through that open door for a new beginning, because the pandemic is giving us a new launching pad to be landlords in the financial services sector. We have to understand that wealth is created through having ownership in systems. And so I was talking about Dudley, and we brought Dudley in, and Dr. Glenn Beneby and Bishop Sam Green and myself, we bought in the general manager of Procter and Gamble and partnered with Joe Dudley, and we invested over $500,000 to have a fulfillment center. We bought Dr. Glenn Beneby. I had a little share in the building down on Dowsville. We set it up because we explained that, listen, we have the cash flow industry. There is no way that we should have amenities with 5 million tourists coming in or 3 million by air and staying in those hotels, that every day we are changing out soap and lotion and conditioners. The Bahamas should be making it. We should create a linkage so that when we have pandemics, we got Morning Glory soap or Pansuantiana soap or aloe soap. We know how to do it at that world-class level. And do you know what an MP said in the House of Assembly? He rather white money than black money any day. I said, good God Almighty. Oh, no.
That's a singular moment.
And then the skullduggery
that's
came.
a moment to pause. That's a moment to pause.
Pardon me?
That's a moment to pause right there.
Well, this is what we are fighting. And you know, because our minds are not transformed, then they will say something like, somebody like me, she can't manage. Well, with all the struggles that I have had, and people like me, people with the money haven't accomplished what we have.
Yes.
I can say can't manage. Because we refuse to look at the levels of skullduggery and undermining that we do to each other. There's no reason for us to not be stronger, to have our own Sarah Lees, to be comfortable that if you can make your guava duck, not only make it for the Bahamas, make it so that it could go to the world in Walmart. Let them, the next best thing. If you have a skill, why can't we put it on e-commerce and set it up so we could serve the world? We were born to serve the world. But insecurity is afraid to see those that you don't give permission to for any selfish reasons, the license, the authority based on policy, not beyond what God has mandated us to, within the freedom of the boundaries of values, to let us thrive and believe that the idea that's in you is designed and intended to help you and me. That one day it's going to be a facilitator of opportunity to your children and your children's children.
And that's the generational wealth that we all strive to build, to be able to not just do it for us, but we're seeing beyond where we are. That's vision that you always talk about. Let me just get to some more comments and then I'm going to go on. So Eleanor Williams says, Debbie has always been an excellent pace setter for many Bahamians. Jerusha says, oh my God, I'm honored to be here with the greats. Okay, so I'm a great. Okay, Dr. Bartlett, it's been a long time since I've seen and heard about you. So she's excited about just hearing you tonight. Shirley Bain says, you are so right. That's where economic emancipation starts, by honoring your father and your mother. That's Bible. Andrea Bain says, the Bahamas is a wealthy country. Cuthbert Lewis is listening in from Guyana. Shanique says, speak about it. And Shirley Maxine Stubbs says, we were born to serve the world. It is that black crab syndrome. It is that not being able to honor each other that continues to be a fight among us as a people. It is that not recognizing the strength that is in somebody, celebrating that strength and putting that strength on a pedestal because it's working. And it's okay if it's not coming from me. It's coming from Dr. Debbie. So we celebrate her. We cheer her on because we understand in the business model that she is building, that she's looking to reach back and bring others up with her. But if you don't have that mindset, if you don't have the business acumen, if you are lazy, if you are not diligent, then we'll pretty much see exactly what we're experiencing right now. And that's people still trying to pull you down when you're trying to be elevated. So, this whole idea of economic emancipation, of being able to, as you have always said, to strengthen our women and uplift our men, this whole idea of me making sure that as I emerge, as I elevate, I'm taking you with me. Where does that begin? How do we begin to say to us as a people, it's okay to celebrate Debbie because she's doing well. It's okay to support her because that's the issue right there. They don't really want to support you because they have this idea that if you go a little further than them, or they're not going to look good anymore if you go a little further. And if you were advancing, they actually plot, as you can attest to try to kind of discredit you and take away your shine. But what they're missing is the fact that when you have vision, a vision never dies. Vision doesn't die. The visionaire finds is innovative. A visionaire is strategic, and so they will. If you clog up that well, they'll dig another well. They will dig another well. And so let's talk about. You mentioned the troubles that you face, and this is another thing I'm saying it publicly that I admire about you because you are a wealthy woman. And when I say wealth, I'm just not talking material wealth. I'm just talking intellectually, spiritually, etc. And you've faced your hard times. You've been through, you've had great success, but you've also experienced great loss. And one of the tenets of the show is being able to teach people and to show people like you and me who have overcome challenges and they're not afraid to show their scars and speak their truth. That's what we do every week when we get here. Let's talk about when the rug was pulled from underneath you and you found everything that you had built up, and you found that what you had put your trust, people that you put your trust in, the betrayals and all that came with it. Speak to people about how did you see yourself out of that. Let's go there.
One day Pikesville, I hope you tell the side of the story, because Pikesville was there at Gems, and can I tell you, it's just horrible, but it's okay. The valley is the best place to be. Then you have vision that will lift you, restore you. And so my story, let's go back a little bit about ZNS. I was the first Black in Rock Island, Illinois, where most white people are, to be on CBS. And I came back, and thank God for Clement Maynard. Sir Clement Maynard insisted, and Mike Smith. Mike Smith was the director, but there was some resistance to say that there's enough women, and they wanted to send me to Freeport. Freeport didn't have television. Mm-hmm. And Mike Smith called and said, please see what you could do. I think Debbie Bartlett would be good. And Sir Clement Maynard made the decision, say, Frank Bartlett and Miss Bartlett, when you find them Bartletts, those Wiscoms and those Bethels, hire them. They are honest and they are hard workers. And so they put me in copywriting, not in the newsroom. All great things begin small. Mm-hmm. I didn't say, well, listen here, none of y'all been on CBS. And CBS used me to elect the first Black mayor in Rock Island. They were, I was a little limited then. I just had this dream about coming back to the Bahamas, and they offered me a green card and promised that I would go to CBS Chicago in 2 years. So I may have been over before she was, but I said, I'm coming back with the understanding that it's going to take a little longer, but I just didn't know it was going to take this long. And Elva Russell Rowe walked up to me a few months later and asked if I would do a show called Woman. Did that show, became a hit. It evolved from there to Reaction. And then there was a strike, and I stepped into the newsroom, and that's where my news career began. Saying all of that to say, that in popularity, it was really high, and I'm so grateful, but I was the lowest paid. And eventually, when Sandra Knowles became the general manager, she promoted me to director and then assistant director. And my salary was so low, it was still below everybody else in the assistant general manager. But I was not distracted. I started telling myself that the world is my marketplace. And this is the university that is training me. This is not my final destination.
Mm-hmm.
And I had fibroids, which I have now. They tell me after certain days you come back, but I know true I have it, okay? and but I went and I was off for 2 weeks, and the Lord gave me, I'm not 2 weeks, 8 weeks. The Lord gave me the vision for the CEO network and said that when it was time for you to come back, your interest will drop out. When you do not treat integrity and professionalism with dignity, the Lord moves you out of the environment.
Yes. Preach. I could say that one. Preach.
And so I had the first CEO Network conference in 1997. Mr. Dudley that's where I met Mr. Dudley.
Mm-hmm.
And he pulled me outside. He said, I haven't heard anybody like you that sounds like me. I don't bring people into my organization to teach. I have 200 of my leaders that I want to ensure that they become millionaires. And he said, the only reason you're not a millionaire in the Bahamas is because they don't understand who you are. They don't respect you. They're afraid of you. Come with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me into um, his empire. And I had the Honorable Leslie Miller there and had a trade mission. Leslie Miller cried like a baby to see a black man living that way. When I got to the airport, listen, that white Rolls Royce with that blue top and the driver with his cap and dressed down and that sign out there saying, welcome, Debbie Bartlett, Charlotte. I used to travel with Dame Marguerite as a reporter. I remember I used to see Dame Marguerite. Anytime she get in the car, she put it on hip first. I put my hip in first, to
Mm-hmm.
my legs. Everybody looking around. I say, hey. And they looking at me. I say, I went into, and I'm making a point now in terms of what it's like. I get in there. The child, when the driver said, we're approaching Dudley's plant, and 64 acres. My heart started beating fast because, oh my God, all I could see is Mercedes and Rolls Royce. What I tell you say earlier, your company gives you a glimpse of your future. And when he put me in the room, he repeated, he said, now let's talk about, we're not going to have a contract at this level. We don't have contracts. You are here because you're going to consult me and I am going to consult you. He said, what do you want to pay? What do you want me to pay you? I say, oh, I didn't know what to say. I say, sir, I am so honored that you would even have me here. So I didn't want to go too high to get sent back home in the next flight. And I didn't want to go too low.
Mm-hmm.
When he told me what he was going to pay me, but yeah, I almost fainted right on the spot. I said, oh, he got out of that room. I had to go and tell my wife. Child, I got up. I started moving around. But you know what's the moral of the story? I made more in 18 months than I did in 20 years at
Mm-hmm.
7X.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Keep working.
Yeah.
The dividends you're paying forward. And so let's fast track. So in um, 2006, I think, or 5 or something, I started Gems. And we invested. And you know this thing about wealth. Wealth is a knowledge. Glad you said that. And at this point, what a lot of people don't know, I had a gift and souvenir store, thanks to Richard Demerit, who advised me that I should go after it with the brand that I have in the country. And I lost money the first year and the last year, 9/11. I decided to close it down. Yeah, that was the point when I started jams, going after jams. And I used to buy and sell property. I had um, real estate condos down in Love Beach. Um, and I still have acres of beachfront in one of our family islands. Tried to steal from me and have a little battle in there, but that's another story. I'm just saying that we defined wealth. I didn't take the wealth that I had and put it in a house to impress. Develop your fields first. That's why I'm saying this.
Mm-hmm.
I rented my condos on the beach and eventually sold them. And I came back home. When I first came from college, I wanted to have that sense of independence. And I said, child, please, let me rent that. I came home. My mother thought she was divorced at the time, that all her children would be married. And that was true, except for me. So I ended up living with my mother in a small home. And people define you as, I mean, when I say small, 3-bedroom, but people define you based on where you live without knowing
Yes.
that the Bible says develop your fields first. Don't get your mansion first. I mean, I had Jaguars and guess what? More wealthy than people in those homes that they can't afford. But we had, at the end of the day, it was my property. That is how you get me to talk about things on camera. You good? That up there on the
I just
airport
got
by
it like that. But
by
like I
Fusion.
said, I want to reinforce the fact that each week on this show, I want to reinforce the fact that we share these insights with people because we want them to get the lessons. We want them to understand that yeah, you see her and you've heard about her, but if you understand the transition and the process, you would be able to appreciate the journey, and that's what we seek to do each week on this platform. So yeah, I appreciate. I want them to hear the peaks, but I want them to also know that there were some valleys as well.
Yeah, well, yes. Thank you. So I'm moving up to Jams, and I got my property by from road to road in Fusion, and that is what funded Jams. People start talking all sort of nonsense, but who charged this? The property was the mortgage. Right after that, I was blessed with having a multi-million-dollar contract to advise the government of the Turks and Caicos, managing consultant for the first HD television station, and ended up working and advising Premier Michael Missick. With my former partner was a part of that, and that contract we completed our mission and was invited to stay on, but of course we know Michael Missick ran into some challenges, and by that time in 2008 we had hurricanes, and we had um, uh, had to take a lot of money, and with the tower fell, and I'm missing out some things, but the bottom line is money was embezzled from my account. And then there was the separation of partnerships. And, I hold no malice. Like two people always agree somebody's unnecessary, and it's not to blame anybody. It was a good run with Abraham and Lot, but they had to separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then down in the future, Abraham still rescued Lot. So it's a part of life and it's experiences. But the Jams team can tell you that my life is under constant threat. I have had 2 guns held to my head, 1 to my side, people showing up at Jams, and it's a lot. I mean, I don't want to go into the details, but Richard Demerit said to me, and he was the former Auditor General. I'm calling names so you can verify if I'm telling the truth, and you'll see that I am underplaying what really happened. I said, and but you know, he told me one day, he called me because he and Pastor Miles was in the bank when Richard DeMille told the bank, say, well, this bank needs a forensic audit. So they say, well, the person who was stealing off our account was fired. But for the threats to my life, for being held up by gunpoint, Richard DeMille, who was the former Auditor General of Bahamas, a High Commissioner, and clearly a CPA, said he has not met anyone who has gone through what I have gone through and who is not dead from a heart attack or stroke. That's when you have the peace of God that passes understanding. You can do that when you have a vision, and I know the Lord gave me the names of GEMS and CEO Network. And like the people of Israel, going through the middle class, the delivery channel. I call the wilderness the delivery channel to the promised land. So Lyndon said that this great little nation will become economically independent. That is not Sir Lyndon's idea, that's God's mandate. And on our way there, what we don't know, the hell you catch on the way.
Yeah.
But the key is that are you able to remain focused with your faith intact, even when your life is being threatened? That you could remain focused in hope and able to identify the opportunities. Even when you submit proposal, they call me and say, write this proposal, you have it. We have a signature, just come this day, and then they disappear. Over and over. So performance is not, I'm not complaining. Purpose preserves. And you cannot hold the hand of God down. And when you disobey, God finds another way. So you're able to do it because you are not my source, God is. I have to make sure that I am submitting to doing what is right.
Yes.
It's long. It tests your faith. You're lonely. You're learning, though, who to trust, how much to trust, and who to never trust. So as the Lord brings you up again, you can identify the devils before they know there's a devil. And one sign of someone that you do not trust is an ungrateful soul. If we think about it, the 3 million Israelites that died in the wilderness, in the middle class, died because they were ungrateful. It is the iniquities that are, it's like those termites. You don't see them. When you start seeing them, you know they did a lot of damage. That you almost got to build a new house. The Terminator can't even help you. That's those iniquities that we have become very used to. But so to my point, I remember when I wanted to buy a Jaguar, I called Richard DeMille had several Jaguars, and he said, think big. Which one of these you want? There was one with 4,000. He told me, listen, believe it. Work hard. Believe it. And he gave me a challenge. And I called Paul Major, who was at Citibank at the time. And when Paul Major heard what Richard DeMille was charging me for that Jaguar, I'm going and telling you a story, the difference in mindsets and the challenge we face. Paul Major was happy for me. He said, by the time, when I had money in the bank, he said, by the time you get it, your draft would be ready. And one day, I was sitting in my office, and every business I had, because my mother and I also had Debbie's Delight in Elizabeth Avenue. Our colleague was another mentor. And he had some buildings and have some buildings there. And short and a long story, I kept calling BEC, it was then. There's something wrong with the meter, and they recognized it. I wrote and I said, "This is it." They said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to fix it." I would never forget one Friday. I am sitting in my office about 3 o'clock. The phone rings from BEC, and the gentleman said, "Your bill is $10,000. I said, "Wait a minute. That's higher than the palace. Please allow me to get the letter. You want to know what kills business? The business that your child, you could work in, because envy and hate is sitting at a desk, who don't know your story, who holds your applications down because they don't like you,
Right.
who you think you are." Listen, we're talking real talk now. You know what this gentleman said to me? I said, "Allow me to fax you the letter I sent. You could go there right now and see the meter is going crazy. I have on file the light bill of the palace. You know how big the palace is." And they and it's nowhere near I said, "It doesn't make any sense." You know what that man told me? He said, "If you don't have the $10,000," and I had just gotten a shipment, I used to do yogurt and employ all of those people in Fox Hill with all their dillies and mangoes and soursop, fresh mango, all of those things. You see? And the man said to me, "I don't care what you have in your file. If you do not have that 10,000, you know what $10,000 is in those days? If you don't have that $10,000 by 5 o'clock," and I had just gotten a shipment of yogurt in, "your electricity will be shut down." And we'll talk about it on Monday. So, of course, all my stuff would.
Right.
And thank God I had it in the bank. Now, watch this. He said, "Instead of you driving around in a Jaguar," I don't know this man, "pay your bills." See the difference?
Right.
And that's the spirit that we have allowed to fester.
Yes.
Among Black people.
It's very, very sad. As much as you can, that's just very, 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 very sad. It is that thorn in the flesh that exists among Blacks when we just have a problem celebrating others' wins. We just have a major problem doing that, and it's so very sad. Rather than seeing that this could be me and I could be even greater, they're just jealous because it's not them, but they don't see themselves as being, and it's a vision of what you see yourself as, and it goes back to the whole mindset and what do you really see, and whether or not you even have a vision for your own life. That is the question. And I think what happens is, for many people who don't have a vision of their life, I think those are the ones who are really jealous, because the person who has a vision is working his vision, is working her vision, and looking forward to actually see what they have already seen. But the person who has none, all they have is envy. All they have is, who does she think she is? Or how did she get that? Without understanding that whatever she has, you can have it too, if you have a vision for your own life. So I want to wrap up because we've been talking a lot, but I want you to just give them a precursor of this whole idea of economic emancipation, the work that you've been doing globally, because while you may not have been hearing the name Dr. Deborah Bartlett called nationally, meaning in the Bahamas, she has been working globally. She has been working globally. She has been making inroads in nations around the world. And I've been privileged to be riding her coattail along the way. So let's talk about what is to come now that you've seen yourself out of the valley, and some amazing things are about to happen that does not just benefit you. That's the beauty of it. But that we as a people, and I'm not just talking about Bahamian people, but a people are able to, in the diaspora, will be able, and around the world, actually, it's not limited to race. But let's talk, give them a glimpse, a sneak peek of what's coming, and how important next month is going to be.
Thank you, thank you. You know, God introduced himself as a team. This is not a me generation, this is a we generation. And anybody who has a history of me knows that I've never just planned for me. It has always been me. And as a matter of fact, Joshua 1:14 talks about the time when the Israelites were preparing to go cross over Jordan, because there was the first generation of wealth transferred to the former slaves out of Egypt. When the Egyptians turned over their wealth, you know, to build altars of golden calf, I mean, you have plenty of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what the instruction from God was is that those of you who became wealthy under Sir Lyndon Finley, under the Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram, that first generation up there, your responsibility is to let your children stay back on the estate with all your livestock, all your shares, all of your investments, and go and help the generation that came behind you. It didn't just stop. You see where the family was? Taking care of what they have. But the strong spearhead leader, it's supposed to come with the people of that nation and ensure that they have a safe passage across the Jordan. And then he says, don't leave them until they get their estate too, because at that time they could help somebody else. That's how it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so we declared in this country that economic independence was the destination. And that's the destination for humanity. Anybody that comes from slavery, we're supposed to return to our original home where we were economically liberated in the Garden of Botswana, in his presence. That's where we're supposed to be going back to. And so I realized that the calendar has the past and the present, but not the future. And so I am so humbled and honored that universities, a couple of universities in Africa, and I'm grateful to the great continent of Africa, the foundation of all great empires, that they are rising again and connecting. And in this instance, the ambassador, His Excellency Sidney Colley, is working with me. Well, he asked me to sit on the board that he chairs, and I facilitated a relationship for him and the universities in Africa to have a relationship with a university in America. And with that, we gave birth to a memorandum of understanding that has been formalized. And the role of the CEO network in economic emancipation is a couple levels. One, that they've agreed, we have crafted Dr. Karen St. Cyr and some IT executives in the States, along with myself and the CEO network team, includes Miranda and Cipriana Bethel and Marissa Mason Smith and Coralie Adley, just to name a few, Vince McDonald. That we have a curriculum, and this is huge because the the United States University is taking our curriculum because we need a shift in mindset. The other very important thing is that we will launch and we will announce the date. I don't want to preempt what is happening with the university. That they will stand with the economic emancipation movement to declare one day out of the year Economic Emancipation Day.
Yes.
We have Economic Emancipation Proclamation, so think about how important and basic it is. Without vision, the people throw off restraint. What else are we doing? We are talking to governments at high levels in countries around the world. It's very humbling to know that there are leaders in other countries, including London. We have an office in London and representatives in different parts of Africa, Botswana, Ghana. We're talking to people in Zimbabwe, Namibia, Congo, where the gold mountain is. And I am proud. See us, those who hate ourselves. We don't think that Africa matters, and we get so blinded the fact that Africa is the new economic frontier.
Yes, indeed.
So the slave mentality always wants to get on board when the crowd is on board. We don't like that process of pioneering, but you're going to see an explosion. See, when you're thinking right, you can recognize opportunity more easily. I am so proud of a Bahamian. The Bahamian, his name is Dario Roberts. He created an algorithm. The algorithm makes us, and this, guess what? Yahoo, Forbes magazine, Bloomberg are among the publications that is saying his invention, our Bahamian invention, is redefining the financial services sector. How about that? And the owners of one of the largest banks in the United States are his partners. They are licensed for every state in the United States, in Europe, and in London. And he has invited me to have an agency status around the world. I am so humble. Now listen. So most people don't even know he has a PayPal on steroids, better than PayPal, MoneyGram. He created a Bahamian. You know, so the first phase is merchant services. And guess what? His white partners named the agency that they have licensed me for as Economic Emancipation Payment Financial. I don't want y'all to open no white people. No. You see who backing Dario? And opening the world to him? And then we come here and they say, well, there's a moratorium. A Bahamian who is making history. And only if we win a gold medal on the track and field, we celebrate when they come to the airport, give them a little gift and forget about them. But don't understand the significance of helping, supporting, being out front. How could we be comfortable with letting the world celebrate what we do? Because you know what? This is what a mother, the matriarch of a resident of Life at Key, and her son was having lunch with me. And she told me that I'm going to leave Nassau. I said, why? She said, anytime I hear from Bahamians is to ask for money. They never say thanks. I was so ashamed I did just that. Around there, it's like, oh. say they're a little more mean spirited now, and they don't respect us. You know what her son said? Mommy, how do you expect them to respect us when they don't respect each other?
Wow.
So we are repelling opportunities from us because we are comfortable with disrespecting each other. And so Dario Roberts, he didn't take his opportunity to help change the world. Not only does he have the what you call it, the what I just call it, PayPal. He has MasterCard partnering with him. He's launching in October the bank and a trading platform. And he turned around and his partners said, we would like to let our bank back your economic emancipation coin. And better still, when they put the coin on their account, on their master debit card, they can spend it anywhere in the world. They can spend it in the food store, at the gas station, anywhere that accepts MasterCard. But guess what we do it? We in turn, the CEO Network and Economic Emancipation, empowering other people. So we're having agencies in different states and countries around the world because it's not for me, it's for me. How many people can we help get an economic leg up? And can we find a community of people who can be loyal, integrous, who believes in reproducing themselves so that we can help each other succeed?
Thank you so much. This is we're going over our time, but let me just read these last comments. Someone says, Renee says, I keep hearing jealous and envy. How do we get beyond that? Is it inherent in our blackness? Oh, of course it's not inherent in our blackness. And we get beyond it by shifting our mindset and learning how to appreciate and celebrate each other's wins and understanding that if it happened for somebody else, it can happen for you too if you put in the work. If you are honest, if you are integrous, it can happen for you too. So it's certainly not inherent because no, ma'am. No, I'm not going to even speak that over a race. Shirley Bain says, a major problem celebrating each other. My bishop said jealousy is like a cancer. And sometimes these people have more than you do, the people who are jealous about you. Mr. Anderson says, I'm encouraged, overcoming and telling your truth. Absolutely. So Joba says Africa will be powerful again. Roxana says, go Dr. Debbie, Africa will be great again. Make Africa great again. Carell says, very interesting and good nights, and a mindset shift is important. Change in the paradigm. Absolutely correct. So I know this has been a very long day for you, and I so appreciate you taking the time to swerve with me tonight. There's just Sonia Joseph is there. Hey, Sonia. She says good night to you.
Hi, Sonia.
Hey, Sonia. Sandra Lee says, Debbie, you have really inspired me. I'm celebrating you as always. Your schoolmate, Sandra Lee Fisher.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
bless you.
Sandra Lee is here. So thank you all. So any parting words as so many things are coming up and the opportunities that will avail themselves to the persons who are out there in terms of economic emancipation. It is a movement, and it's not just a good idea. It is an idea whose time has come. And for all who are willing to embrace and to be a part of it, I am excited. I'm certainly excited. First of all, I'm blessed to be connected to you. And I'm excited to see your vision because I've heard about, I've listened and labored with you. And to see this vision come to pass is just, it pushes me. And that's why I keep repeating that. If you have a vision, it only encourages you that if it happened for somebody else, then yours too can come to pass. But you have to put the work in. You have been diligent. The early mornings, I remember sometimes we'd be in the office at what, 5 in the morning or something like that, and we're leaving in the dark when it's like after 8 or 9 sometimes, putting in the work and doing what it takes. And that has been your modus operandi for as long as I've been privileged to know you. So I want to celebrate you personally tonight and to thank you. Okay, so yeah, everybody's, they found you to be inspiring, and thank you for your contribution. That's what they're saying. Someone says, this is Sherry says it's been eye opening. Shirley Maxine Stubbs says she enjoyed the dialogue tonight. So that it just goes on and on. But thank you so much. Thank you for being who you are and for being that example of integrity, empowerment, Christian. I mean, just decent. Yeah, let me just put it like that in Bahamian vernacular. Thanks for being decent. So it's just thanks for being decent, a decent person who's so always willing to uplift and strengthen and to lend a hand wherever it's needed. So I appreciate you so much for that. And I look forward to the days and weeks and months ahead as we take the message of economic emancipation literally around the world. So any parting words before I let you go and get some rest?
I'm inviting you. Well, thank you, Miranda, and thank you for your sacrifice. And I told Miranda that those who sacrificed with me, it's us. And that us, I heard Sonia Joseph, someone there in Picewell. They know a lot of the story in Gems, and there are those like Miranda never left my side. I am so grateful. And I can't wait to see the day when we share in the dividends, because Miranda is an owner. It's we who built it. She just told you the sacrifice after. But let me tell you, see, I can tell you the truth. I tell her sometimes, I say, man, Miranda, I don't have it. I got enough for us to have $50 for lunch. But Picewell and Sonia Joseph can tell you, when I had it, they were the best paid in the industry. I don't withhold. And my joy is to be able to see, and I ask God to let me live to see, help others become owners. Not everybody is a spearhead leader or an entrepreneur, but everybody with skill deserves to have equity, to have some profit sharing or some equity in the vision if they go the extra mile. So I'm just asking, let us keep this spirit that you're on the phone, because I believe, Sandra, I'm so happy that I love you. I haven't seen you for a little while. But I think we're all on the phone because we know that this is a new beginning for the Bahamas, and that we have to unite under the vision that God gives us. There's nothing that we could do to improve what He has for you and for me. And when we realize, accept, and know our purpose, we don't want somebody else's opportunity, because then we then sign up to be a counterfeit. We don't be a counterfeit. A counterfeit can spend for a season. What you have in you will last beyond your lifetime.
Yeah.
But you can't get it out of you unless you have a team that believes in you. We believe in you, the Economic Emancipation Movement, CEO Network, and give us that opportunity to continue to serve you and advise us on how we can awaken that sort of awareness within the Bahamas so it becomes a culture.
Yes.
And that we too, like the world is about to do, submit to God's vision God's mandate for our life so that we can have an economic emancipation day. What that does is reminds us every year, at least once a year, that we should be introducing policies that is going to make our environment a business friendly one, a family friendly one, a peaceful one. And so we will have more scrutiny that any policy that is going to strip the level of ownership opportunities for the people of the Bahamas is not the policy that we will accept. So God bless you. I love you all. And thank you so much for just letting me share. I don't know how Miranda got me to talk on my business on everything. You're
Thank you
simply the
so
best.
much. Love you, and just so many comments of people just appreciating who you are, appreciating your transparency and your knowledge, and the gift that you are to the world. So many people are appreciating that. So thank you so much for serving with me, and I'll talk to you real soon. Get some rest. Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye bye.